Paul Waters, United States Navy, World War II. Paul's one of my Navy fighter pilots from World War II. I had the great honor of meeting him and interviewing him on Veterans Day 2013 in Sturgis, Michigan. We also spoke together at Sturgis High School the day before. And just a great man. I miss Paul so much. He moved to Texas where his family was. He was away from his family for over 30 years. So in the last few years of his life, they went to Rockwall, Texas, where I've been many times with my work. And he passed away there in 2018 at the ripe old age of 96. He wanted to be 102, but I think 96 is great. So I love Paul. He's one of my heroes of World War II, and hopefully he'll be yours too. He's part of the Real Masters of the Air series also as a fighter pilot. He flew the Grumman 4F4 Wildcat and then the 4F4. He flew the Grumman 4F4 Wildcat and then was replaced by the No, that's wrong. Paul flew the Grumman F4F Wildcat and then it was replaced by the F6F Hellcat. These were carrier-based fighters, folks, and they carried 6 30 caliber machine guns, and sometimes he told me they carried bombs, so I'm sure they flew fast and did a great job in World War II. But he received a Distinguished Flying Cross for his service in World War II. But I miss Paul, and he told me a great story that you're going to hear. He enlisted in the Navy in 1942, October of 42, served in World War II, 43 through 45, and then got out and just was a successful businessman. But all these World War II veterans were. And I don't think it's any coincidence, I've never gone on camera to say this, but I don't think it's any coincidence, folks, that with the passing of our World War II generation, all hell is breaking loose in this land. And they were called the greatest generation for a reason. So God bless Paul. Lost him in 2018, like I said, but his memory lives on. I want to thank Sean Johnson for sponsoring Paul's story today. Sean, thank you. You're one of my faithful sponsors, and I really appreciate you, sir. And I thank you for supporting my work and our country and our veterans, and I hope to shake your hand one day and thank you in person. And I just want to say God bless you, and thank you again. Okay, folks, let's get into Paul's story. I'd like to thank everybody that's helped sponsor my work, donate to this work, and the radio station, Voice of History Radio. Thank you so much. You've been a blessing to me. You're the reason I keep going, and I'm just grateful, very grateful for you. And I pray for you, and I know some people don't want me to pray, but I pray for these people. So anyways, all right, God bless you people. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't. Share these videos with others, and let's just keep this thing going. God bless you. And you already told me you're 90 right now? That's
yeah, 90. Be 91 in 10 days.
Did you ever think you'd be 90 years old?
No, never. My goodness sake.
That happen?
Well, I'm very optimistic about life. I've had lots of problems. Had cancer. At 70 years old, I got prostate cancer. It's still with me, 20 years, but I'm still doing good. I still take a shot. I was taking them every 3 months. They got a new drug now, every 6 months. But I've never had a pain with the cancer, so I'm a lucky guy. Yeah. But PSA's rising. Who knows? Nobody knows. PSA is kind of a tricky thing. And one of my doctors, a urologist, Underwood, he's retired, he said, "It's just a number, Paul. Don't worry about it." He said, "I got some there, over 1,000 PSA. Mine's 140 something. Yeah."
Tell me what year you went into the military.
I went in the military in 1943. In 1942, I enlisted in October. Two of my buddies, fraternity brothers, said, "Paul, we were in college. We both, all of us were in our second year. We were fraternity brothers." And one of them said, "Why don't we all become naval aviators?" It wasn't me. one of the other guys. I said, marvelous idea. He said, well, I have to go to Minneapolis. Minneapolis, a couple 100 miles north. Got in his car, convertible, drove up there. We all passed the test. And who do they call first? Me. January 1943. That's when I went in. And they called me to Iowa City, Iowa, pre-flight school. Tough, 2 months of, but if you were outstanding, you could do it in 10 weeks. And it was 3 months, not 2 months. I did it in 10 weeks. I don't know how. I think with my athletic ability, I was a good wrestler. I wrestled in college. I wrestled in high school, captained the wrestling team. I loved to wrestle, and I wrestled on the Navy pre-flight team. And that was fun. And I'm sure I got extra points for that. Okay. Not for up here too much. Yeah. But that was fun. It was good training. They taught me how to swim. I could swim. I was born in the Mississippi River. I could swim good, but they taught me how to get on my back and rest and save. And it saved my life. If I wouldn't have had that training, they gave me wonderful training. I had 2 years of training before I got into combat, which was just fantastic.
And you went in to be a pilot. You wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah, I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a fighter pilot, you know. And so I graduated. I went from Minneapolis there, and I was telling the boys, I flew this Yellow Peril, and I just flew it. I got a picture for you. I gave it to you. I flew that just a year ago, and I flew that plane in Minneapolis. That was the first plane I flew in the Navy. Open cockpit. They called it a Stearman. I flew it 35 degrees below zero with open cockpit. I was like a zombie walking out there. I had fur-lined everything. And I could hardly move, you know, but I got into the airplane and flew it. And I was up there 3 months, graduated, went to Pensacola, Florida. And that's where I got my wings. I got all kinds of basic training, and then fighter training. And I went to a field called Barron Field, and they called it Bloody Barron because they were losing a pilot every day, every day. They had a lot of English people training too, and I have to say they were a high percentage of the people that were crashing. What they do, they were dive bombing, and they'd get in a dive and just forget to pull out, you know. And that happens a lot. You just don't realize how fast you're going, and the ground is coming upon you pretty fast. And it was really something.
So and what kind of aircraft were you flying then?
SNJ is a wonderful training plane. It was the most popular training plane. The Air Force, they also flew it. They called it the AT-6, and we called it the SNJ. Great airplane. Then from there, I went to Jacksonville, Florida after graduation. Went home first, saw the folks. My mother was always sick throughout her life. And today, I got a box full of letters that I wrote to them. And my sister saved them all. And there must be 300 letters. I'm not sure what I should do with those. But I went to Jacksonville, and they didn't have any fighter planes over there. So they said, you can fly these SBDs, which was a dive bomber. They said, they'll do everything a fighter will do. They're just not as fast. So we trained in those, and they were very maneuverable, good airplane, real stable. It was a two-seater or a fighter plane, just you're all by yourself. Graduated from there out to San Diego. San Diego, more advanced, out to the, we go out on the ocean, check, we have to get carrier qualified. You got to make 8 carrier landings. Made 8 carrier landings to qualify. And from there up to a place called Hollister. You're from California, are you?
Colorado.
Colorado. You
I remember Hollister.
Yeah, Hollister's a nice little town. And we trained there. We were training in that time. They still didn't have any F6Fs. They had F4Fs, and that's what we trained in, the F4Fs. And it was a really fine plane, very maneuverable, but the boys out there in the Pacific in combat, we were losing a lot of them because they didn't have the speed of a Zero. And we lost a lot of F4Fs. They couldn't wait until we got the F6F out there. And once we got the F6F out there, we could fight with anything. I mean, the Zeros were no problems. I mean, they were still tough fighters, but we could compete with them. And we had a ratio of 19-1 for the World War II. A plane shot down, 19 of them for every one they shot down. And that's a pretty good ratio.
What squadron were you in?
I was in VF 33, and Air Group, they called Air Group 33, but the fighter squadron was called VF. There were 25 of us, 25 fighter pilots. And in combat, we lost 3. And one of them was my real good buddy. I mean, we used to play bridge all the time when there wasn't anything else to do. You know, when the carrier's just going somewhere, we had a lot of time to kill, and we used to play bridge, and he was one of our bridge players. And it was a tough loss because he was a really good friend, and I was scheduled to go on the mission, and I had my flight gear on and everything, and the skipper come up to me, Skipper Rooney, and said, "Paula, I want Basket to take your position on this flight, because I want to get some photos." And he was a photo pilot besides a fighter pilot. He had a lot of extra training to get that. I said, "Yes, sir, Skipper," you know. And he went out and got shot down on that mission. And it was about, it was late at night, not real late, but after dusk. They couldn't look for him anymore. They saw him get out of the airplane, and they couldn't get his sub in there. It was just getting too dark. Couldn't get anything in there. So the next morning, I was on the flight, go out to look for him. They saw him get out of his aircraft and get into his life raft. So he was okay, but nowhere to find Basket. So, you know, nobody knew what happened to him at the end of the war. I got out of the war, but one of my good buddies stayed in, and we had a reunion in 1990, and I said, "Bill," I said, "whatever happened to Basket? Did you ever hear?" And he had stayed in, so I thought he may have heard. "Yeah," he said, "but you don't want to hear about it, Paul." "Yeah, I do want to hear about it." But he said they captured him. This was on a little island called Miyako, and our job was to keep those islands so Japanese Kamakazis could not take off and go up and hit our troops and our planes in Okinawa. So I said, what happened, Bill?" And he said, "They captured him, they took him to Tokyo, paraded him up and down the streets, and then beheaded him." Well, you know, the Japanese did a lot of that stuff, but it really hurt. You know, it hurt more because he took my place. But, you know, it wasn't my time. And if I'd have been on that flight, I still would have come back probably, because he was doing things, and he was one of our best pilots, and I'm sure he was trying to get some really good pictures and trying to do his job. But the other two just took off. It was tough. We were the first night intruder group in the Pacific, and these 2 other fellas that I lost, one of them a roommate, and they just took off and didn't join up. I mean, it was so dark, and the guy you were going to fly wing on, he'd have his wing lights on, I mean, which are very small, and his tail light on. You could see him. They just never joined up. Sometimes one of them, when he took off, I mean, he took off in the terrible, terrible weather. But we looked for both of them. But casualties of the war, you know.
So you flew the Hellcat, the F6.
The F6F Hellcat, yeah.
Tell me what you had on there as far as ammunition or bombs. Or
Oh, it was just a fantastic airplane. We had 50 caliber machine gun, 3 on each wing, 6 of them. And then we had underneath the wings, we had rockets, 6 rockets. And we had lots of training, rocket training in the States, so we knew how to use them. And then we had, sometimes, not all the time, a 500-pound bomb underneath the body. So, I mean, we were more like a bomber than a fighter plane at times. But, you know, that F6F was such a stable airplane and so fast and so maneuverable that it was a pleasure. It was really a treasure to fly. I can tell you about one mission we were on, which was...
Yeah, I want to hear.
Yeah, it was, you asked about the ammunition and things that we were carrying. And on this particular flight, we were going out to keep 2 airfields, keep dropping craters on them so their airplanes couldn't take off. And we got there early in the morning. We were night intruders, and we'd always take off early in the morning in the dark and land back afterwards. And at night, we'd always take off right at dusk and land back. So we always had a night takeoff or night landing, one or the other. It was always tough. But on this mission, we were going out to keep these airfields so the Japanese couldn't kamikaze our ships up on Okinawa. These islands were about 80 miles south of Okinawa. Miyako and Ishigaki, they were called. And this was Miyako. And we hit that baby in the morning, and a bunch of airplanes are warming up on their runway. I'd say 25 to 30 bombers were warming up. And we look above, though, and we're coming in about 10,000. There are 7 Japanese planes up there, fighter planes. And once you go make a run, after a run, you're just a sitting duck for those babies to come down and get you. But it's up to the skipper to make the decision what we're going to do. And he made the right decision. He said, we're going to go on the first run, we're going down and we're going to get all those planes on the ground. And he said, get rid of everything except your machine guns, but do everything else, the rockets and the bombs, release on your first run. So everybody did that. And we claimed that we got all those planes on the ground. They gave us credit for 25. And after we did that, though, I go like this on my seat because I know that I'm going to have a Zeke on my tail. I look around, then I look back up where they were. They're still circling up there. So the skipper says, let's go get them. And that's the only time I got one. And that was a terrible experience. He was coming down. Oh, I didn't think anything. The more I think of it now, it was. But I was coming like this. He was coming down on me. My 50 caliber machine guns, tracers, were just going right into his engine, and that was good. But his were just missing me, just going over the top of my head. And we were coming in at 300 miles each, roughly 600 miles, closing though. And I was afraid he might be a kamikaze pilot too, but you don't want to turn first. If you turn first, you usually lose the battle. So I didn't turn first. He did. I got him, and that was my only kill. And it was exciting, you know, and that's what we were trained to do. We were trained to kill Japs. I mean, from pre-flight on, they talked a lot about killing Japs. And to this day, I don't have any love for a Jap. I have to say that. I never have a Japanese anything in my house. Oh, I wouldn't say that. You can't hardly live without like television or something coming from, but no cars or anything like that. But that was really frightening.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your first time in combat. That probably wasn't the first time, but that's the first time you shot somebody.
That was the first time that I ever faced an enemy aircraft. And the only time I faced an enemy aircraft in combat was that time. Yeah.
What happened to your friend? You said he went down. Was he engaged like that too? A Zero shot him down, or what happened?
No, no. I think nobody knows for sure, but I think he got shot down by small arms. I think he was very low, and they had. I mean, we used to attack that island a lot, and they had a lot of small arms that I'd always come back. Most pilots did, with holes in their airplane, you know. And you're fortunate because if it hits the wrong place, you know, if it hits a hydraulic line or someplace, you know, you're going to have to set it down if it hits your engine. But fortunately, my holes never hit anything. They just made holes in the aircraft. Very lucky, you know. I don't like to use that word luck, really. I used to say lucky often, but it wasn't luck. I had God on my team. I really did. He's been with me all my life. I think back on it when I was a kid, I had lots of experiences, how I got through them all. I mean, not life-threatening, but I'm a lucky guy. I've always been a church member, and I really think, without a doubt, that I wouldn't be here today except for the Lord.
So did you used to like pray before missions or during?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We were Kamakazi, and our ship was Kamakazi. That was quite an experience. And I was as far after you could go once, and the Kamakazi come in. I was as far after you could go, and I was on the forecastle, on actually the starboard side of the ship. And that airplane missed our ship by about 20 feet. And we could see the pilot and everything. You know, I thought, hey, we're in the wrong spot, so go forward as far as you can go. And that's what I did. The next one hit, boom, midships, and boom. And I was under the forecastle, and I thought, hey, I got to go out and see what's going on. I got to see. When I went out, a flame come over the top of the deck and hit me right on the chest. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to burn up. And the first thing I thought of, there's nowhere to put the fire out, get in the water. Whew, I went over the side of that ship. I didn't dive, I didn't jump, and I hit just like that flat. And I thought I was going to break my back. And the next thing I know, the dang wave slams me back against the ship. The next thing I think, wow, I'm going to be meat. You know, the screws grind you up. And I swam as hard as I could swim. And the next thing I know, the ship was by me. So I was fortunate. Now, this is at night, and it's dark. But I had my Mae West on. I was very lucky. But I joined up with, there were over 100 people in the water, they say, but I joined up with 4 other fellas, and one of them must have had his life jacket blown off him, didn't have anything. So the other 4 of us held this guy up together and treaded water, and we were in the water, and there was a lot of panicking somewhat, and they were screaming, where's the people that are going to pick us up? And I said, hey, let's all calm down and pray. And we did some praying, and I did. I don't know if they all did or not, but it was about 5 hours, and the destroyer picked us up, put us on a transport, took us back into the harbor we were in, and we sat there in that harbor for about 10 days, and every night we were under attack. And the destroyer, not the destroyer, the battleship Texas was right across the way from us, and it got hit right on the bridge, and a lot of people were killed. And the ship I was on, that they put us on, was kind of a supply ship and hospital. It wasn't a hospital ship, but they had medical facilities. So they brought them all over, a lot of them over to ours. So we had to help tend them. it was very frightening, you know.
So how long were you overseas? How many years or months?
It's actually I went over in November and came back in October. So
45?
yeah.
So where were you?
That was 45. Yeah, that was May 4th, and we got Kamakazi, May 4th, 1945, and then you know the ship that got Kamakazi that I was on. It went back to the States, but they took the air group off in Hawaii. And finally, after 10 days, I got off and rejoined my squadron. And after 10 days, then they put us on another aircraft carrier right back into the combat area. So, but we didn't run into much combat at all. We didn't have to go over islands or anything, just flew air patrol and we shot down a few airplanes. We had a night fighter group on our ship too, and they shot down a few airplanes on that last cruise. But they took us off at Okinawa. We were in the Okinawa campaign from the very beginning. That was April 1st, 1945. We were dropping eggs on the Japanese. We were clearing the way for our troops going in there. And we were the first group in there. We hit it hard for 3 days. And then our troops went in, and we were there on the day they went ashore. And they went ashore pretty easy, but after they got ashore, it was really tough. They had over 100,000 casualties. They had more casualties. Those were deaths too, not just casualties. We had over 10,000, but that was not deaths. It was just casualties, and it was brutal, you know. But they took us off the ship. The war ended. Thank goodness they dropped those atomic bombs. We were on 80 miles off the coast of Japan. We were getting ready for an invasion. We would have invaded them next, and it wouldn't have been long afterwards. And if they hadn't dropped those atomic bombs, I probably wouldn't have been sitting here today, but who knows, you know. Might have not lucked out, might have got with it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about that invasion, so that's always interesting to me that the casualties they estimated like we'd lose 1 million people or something in that invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were ready for that.
Oh, yeah.
So where were you when you heard the news about the bombs?
We were in Okinawa, land-based, in Quonset huts, and we were so thrilled that you know, the war's over. It wasn't much of a celebration. I mean, we had a few drinks, but nothing real big, you know. I mean, we wanted to celebrate, but really wasn't much to celebrate. There's a lot to celebrate, but no place to celebrate with your loved ones, you know.
Was there any talk of dropping a bomb, or it just happened and you just...
No, they had no idea that was going to happen. No.
And then what happened after that? Did you continue missions around there, or what?
No, actually the ship, our carrier, first one we were on was the USS Sangamon. The second one, that's the one that got Kamakazi. The second one was the USS Shenango. And they took us off and put us land base in Quonset huts in Okinawa. The ship's crew went down and picked up prisoner of war. Yeah, and they picked up a lot of them. And then they brought them back. And then they put us back aboard too. And then we headed for the States. And we were hoping we'd go to Frisco because that's where we left from. And we all left some girlfriends there, and we all told them that we were going to see them when we got back. But we landed in San Diego. 3 of us went out for dinner the night before we left the States, and we told these gals that, hey, when we come back, we're going to do this all over again. We landed in San Diego, not a one of us went back. We all liked these girls. It wasn't, you know, wasn't love. It was just It was just, they were nice. We were kind. We were lucky to have somebody to share before we went overseas.
So when you see the pictures of yourself, the pictures that you brought,
Yeah.
looking so young, what do you think about when you look at that picture of you?
I just think that I had a wonderful life experience. I mean, life has been so good to me that I think, hey, how can you be so lucky to be 90, almost 91? And, I've gone, actually, what I've gone through, I mean, I had such wonderful buddies. 25, as I mentioned today. In 1990, we had our first reunion in San Diego. That's when I heard about basket. And after that, we used to have one every year for, up until maybe, that was 1990, up until 4 or 5 years ago. Now, you know how many's left in our squadron out of 25?
Probably 1 or 2.
3.
3?
Yeah, and I'm the only one that can move around. The other one's in California and one's in Rhode Island. Neither one of them can travel anymore, and that's kind of rough.
Well, you're here to tell the story, huh?
Yeah, I'm lucky, and life has been. I would have to say that the serving in the Navy was probably the highlight of my life. I've had a lot of highlights, but I'd have to say that I enjoyed serving. I was trained to do what I did, and I'm glad that I got a chance to be a fighter pilot. I trained for 2 years before I went overseas, and that's a lot of training. And that's another reason I'm probably alive today. Without that good training, I'd have never made it. I mentioned swimming. I went up the carrier once and going down, put the power to it and get about a quarter of the way down the runway, it stopped. The engine starts sputtering. Well, there's a lot of men in the catwalk. I think if I ground loop it, that I can probably save the plane and save myself getting wet. But I think I'm going to kill some men. I've seen it happen before. So I said, no, maybe this baby will take off. But it didn't, got off the end. Well, that's when I got out of the plane, okay, no problems. I had a parachute on with a raft in it, had a buckle on it, and I get that buckle and I work on it and I work on it. I can't get that buckle open to get the life raft out. So the heck with that, I was starting to get heavy, so I just let it go. And I start unloading my pockets, my wallet. Wallet's very heavy, Didn't have much money in it, I'm sure. But anyway, I threw that out, threw what change I had out. And then I remembered the training I had getting on my back. And I had never done much of that before, but that saved my life. I looked over to see if there was a whaleboat. A destroyer always follows you, and hopefully they put a whaleboat out and see you and come get you. And by golly, there were 9-foot waves, and I'd get down at the bottom, the wave couldn't see a thing. Get up the top, I'd look for that whaleboat, and I saw it coming. It was quite a ways off, but it finally got there. But I couldn't have stayed up very much longer. But that saved my life, getting on my back. And so I give the Navy a lot of credit for wonderful training. They're a fantastic organization.
Isn't that exciting to be a fighter pilot, and it kind of maybe not glamorous, but the excitement of that, the pre-flight, the landing on a ship, taking off, and all that. Isn't there a lot of pride? There's a lot of pride in that, but do you consider that glamorous at all?
Yeah, actually, I think most fighter pilots always felt like, they always claimed that they had more fun than anybody else. I mean, we always had a big time. we were very close together as a squadron. I mean, that was important. But we drank together, we played together, and we flew together. And we flew in really tough times, you know, in combat. And a lot of times, we went into a cloud once, and right off the bat, you'd take off. And I was flying wing on a guy that had been out there before. His name was J.O. Watson. And I joined up on J.O., and we started going through the clouds. And pretty soon I don't see him anymore, you know. So I know we're going to keep going until we get out of the clouds. We don't get out of the clouds until 10,000 feet. And I keep my same speed because there's people behind me too. And so you just do everything the same. But we fly wings so close, but I kind of distanced that a little bit because I didn't want to hit him. But when we got out of those clouds, I was probably a block away from him. I was quite a long way away. But that's, you know, that doesn't happen very often. That's really cloud cover. Yeah. But, you know, it's all part of getting up in the morning and doing your job. And that's what it was. I mean, going out and dropping bombs on these runways to keep the Japs from coming up and killing our troops and kamikazing our ships. I mean, that was an important job for us. I mean, it wasn't as exciting, I don't think, as some of the bigger carriers that got into battles, you know, real big battles. We never got into anything like that. So the small carrier didn't get a lot of credit, I don't think, as much as they really should have. I mean, from newspaper reports and all that. But I'm glad you're going to the schools and telling them all this.
Wait, and tell me, why do you think it's important that we share this with the schools?
Well, I tell you, I had a good friend, and he called me up and said, "Would you talk to my grandson?" And I said, "Oh, I'd love to." And he was 12-year-old, and he was from Grand Rapids, but he was coming down to share some time on Klinger Lake. I said, "I'd be glad to." So he come down, and I went over quite a few different stories with him and some history with him, and it was just fun. And I think the schools are not doing the type of job that they should on World War II. And I think it's probably true on all wars. I don't think they're doing, you know, the Vietnam War wasn't like World War II. I mean, World War II, the Japanese, they were really our downright enemies. I mean, they hit Pearl Harbor and hit it hard on a surprise attack and killed a lot of people. And they could have done a lot more if they'd have kept going too, but thank goodness they didn't. And it was not an easy battle. I mean, it was fun to serve my country. I mean, all three of us, I told you, we joined together, but the other two never got in any combat at all. But one was my very best buddy, and he's still alive. He's a year older than I am. But he got to the place where he was a dive bomber pilot, and he got to the place where he was assigned a carrier on the West Coast, and he got there, and the war ended. When I get with him, he's always feeling bad that he never got into combat. But I don't feel lucky that I got in there. I just soon passed it up, but that's what I was trained for. And I was happy I could do my part. And, you know, it's just I think life is fantastic. I mean, I get up every morning and I thank the good Lord that I'm still alive. And then I try to do something good. And I don't always do something good, but I try. I try to say, hey, I'm going to help somebody today. And I try to do something nice. But I'm not as mobile anymore as I used to be either. But I serve my church. I'm a Presbyterian, been a Presbyterian all my life. Almost 90 years, probably 85.
Do you ever wish you were younger again, or you just...
No, I don't. I wouldn't want to go through it again, no. Oh, sometimes I think it'd be fun, but sometimes I think I've had my life, now let somebody else.
Well, you heard me talk today at Rotary Club, so you've heard these questions, but Paul, tell me what the American flag means to you.
Well, I showed you my American flag and my cap, and there isn't anything more important to me than, I think, probably it's life itself. I get so mad when they do things to the flag. You know, you read about burning the flag, and you see the news in these other countries, in Egypt and other places, are stomping all over a flag. It just really hurts me, and I wish I could do something about it. But the flag means, it just means that life starts every day by, I don't know what I'd do without the American flag. I've already got in my funeral arrangements. You haven't seen those yet. I'm going to have an honor guard. I mean, I think it's so important. And the military has been, like I say, probably the most important thing in my life. And, you know, the flag stands for the USA. It stands for freedom. It's hard to put it into words, but it's just there. It's just there, and it's so beautiful.
How about freedom? What does freedom mean to you and the price for freedom?
Oh, the price has been hard. Man, has it been hard. But it means an awful lot. I mean, I think the students today, I don't think in the high schools, in the grade schools, in the middle schools, I don't think enough's been done with teaching them about how freedom comes about. I mean, if we wouldn't have fought World War II, we wouldn't have, if we were speaking Japanese today, there wouldn't be any fun at all, and I don't think we would be. I think they'd annihilated us a long time before. But freedom, I mean, it's there, but most people don't understand how we got there. And it was a lot of people giving their lives for freedom. And I got three good buddies I can't ever replace. I got a good friend of mine, well, my very best buddy's son. He went to Okinawa just in the last year, and he went to this island, Miyako, and he picked up some sand and a terranium, and he sent it to me, and I've got that I've got it displayed at home, and my friend Jerry Vogt, who was with me today, made me a little flag for it, and I got that stuck in the sand, and it's just beautiful. And I got my F6F Hellcat, a replica of it, right next to it, and it's kind of a memorial for my three good buddies I lost in the war. And that flag means an awful lot. And if I said it was a flag I had in the memorial, I was wrong. It was a cross. But my flag is always in my window at home.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So I probably know the answer to this question, but are you proud to be a veteran?
Oh, boy, am I ever. Yeah. I'm glad I didn't miss that. And I'm glad it turned out just like it did, you know. I'm glad I had the opportunity to serve in combat. A lot of people don't. That's not important. But now that I had that opportunity, I'm very thrilled that I did. And I'm so happy I got to return. But I wish all my buddies would have been as lucky. Not as lucky, but I wish they would have returned also. It's hard. Did you see what I got here? A bracelet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I watched your not your Vietnam, but I watched your Iwo Jima film.
I've got two on Iwo Jima. Yeah.
Well, I watched the one, and I was going by Iwo Jima. We were cruising by there in our carrier, and the skipper said, "Hey, we can go." That was after they secured the island. He said, that was before the invasion of Okinawa. That was in between. He said, we got to go over there and get some mail. Do you want to ride over with me? Love to, Skipper. So I rode over with him. I had a buddy out there, so I borrowed a Jeep and went up. And by golly, I found my buddy. He said, Paul, what'd you come way out here for? I said, yeah, I'm secure. He said, there's snipers all over. I said, I didn't see any. You know, you take life as it comes, I mean, and you do things that maybe aren't real smart. But this guy lived 2 doors from me, a good friend. And so I wanted to see him, and he was fine. And but that meant something. We picked up our mail, but the island was secured, but that was a tough battle for those boys. We didn't know where we were going at the time either. Had no idea. Nobody told us we're on our way to Okinawa. We went to a little island called Ulithi. Yeah, it's an island out there in the middle of nowhere. But they had a baseball field there, and they had green beer, so it was fun. I pitched. I was a pitcher. So the officers against the enlisted personnel. So I pitched a softball game, and I'm sitting, after the game, I'm sitting there drinking a green beer. I don't remember who won, but all of a sudden somebody slaps me on the back, and he hit me hard. I thought, what the heck? I turned around. Here's an athletic director from the middle school in Dubuque, Iowa, Jimmy Steiner. And I said, Jimmy, what are you doing here? He said, I'm looking for getting placed on a ship, he said. I said, you want to come aboard our carrier? I'd love to, Paul. Well, I go back and talk to the executive officer. He said, well, yeah, we can get him, we can use him. So 2 days later, he's aboard our ship. And then I get to see him a lot. So, you know, life is strange, but wonderful. Yeah.
Do you have children and grandchildren?
I had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. I lost my oldest boy. Now I have a daughter and a son. They're in Texas. And I'd be in Texas today. I left Texas. But when I lost my first wife at 46 years old, I had the best job in the world. I was working for a Ream Manufacturing Company, heating and air conditioning and water heating. And I was a regional manager, and my boss always told me, you got the best job in the world, Paul. He calls me up on the phone. He said, Paul, need you in Chicago. I said, Bob, I got the best job in the world. He was a fighter pilot too, so we were close. And I said, I don't really want to come to Chicago, Bob. Why would I go to Chicago? He said, because I want you and need you. I said, I'll be there. So I went to Chicago looking for a condo, and I'd been out with a couple real estate other agents, and one of the fellows I was working with said, Paul, I know one in the western suburbs. I'll give her a call. So it was he called her, and the next thing I know, I've got an appointment with a gal by the name of Barbara, and Barbara is now my wife. She sold me the condominium. She sold herself on me, and she's a good real estate agent. Yeah, a great gal. Yeah, and she was supposed to go to a wedding on Saturday, but her boss told her, hey, he's single. And she'd been a widow 5 years. So she said, I'll take him and show him condominiums. She sold me a real masculine condominium, which I loved. And after we got married, she didn't love it at all. We didn't stay in there very long. I went down to Texas to see my kids, took her along, hoping we'd stay there. After 2 years, she said, I can't stand this heat, Paul. Let's go up at Klinger Lake and find something. That's what we did. We've been here for moved here in 33 years.
One last question. What do you want your family to remember about you someday when you're gone?
Oh, really? My son called me just before I come out here today. He's a missionary, and he called me just to tell me Happy Veterans Day, you know. He said, appreciate all you did, Dad, and all this and that. But during my life, he's 60, and they never asked me one thing. I mean, they were not interested, and I didn't tell them. And so they know more than they used to because, you know, people are talking more. And I didn't talk much at all for a long time, but I talk more now with anybody. I like to tell my story. I mean,
So what do you want your family to remember about you?
just that I was a good dad, you know. I hope they think that, you know. But I love my kids, but they've been in Texas and I've been up here 33 years, so we haven't seen each other that much, and that really hurts. But
Maybe they can see a copy of this interview sometime.
oh, I sure hope so. Yeah,
that would
I
be
sure hope so. Yeah, I enjoyed that video. I only watched about half. I didn't have time. I had to get down here to see. Yeah,
Good,
but
good. Well, go home.
I'll listen to the music too. Is that pretty good music? Is it good? Good. Well, I think.
That's a CD of music that I recorded, piano music.
Oh, piano music. I love piano music.
You'll appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Love piano music.
Before I forget, at the end of my interviews, I
Yes.
always ask the veterans to look into the camera and give a salute. When I ask you, can you
Yeah.
do that?
Oh, yeah.
From where you're seated there, okay. Okay, Paul, right into the camera. Go ahead, sir. Oh, perfect. Okay. Now, Greg and I are going to take a picture with you, okay?
Oh, that's good.
So you
I got
there.
a little tremor. I don't know if you. Oh, okay.
Come to you.
Ah, that's nice. Very good.
We're going to come over to you again. We've been doing this all day. We're getting pretty good at this.
Is that me?
That's you.
I just had cataract surgery in both
Oh.
eyes, so I can see really good now.
Good, good. I've
Yeah.
had both those
Have you had
eyes
that
done
done?
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a piece of cake, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, but the pre-op and the post-op is what got me. All the
Really?
drops and then I've never had surgery in my life, so it was a big deal.
Oh.
They might as well did brain surgery on me. It costs as much
Yeah.
now. But I want to thank you on camera for your service
It is a privilege.
and happy Veterans Day.
Thank you.
And you've been so kind with your words today, and that means a lot
thank
to
you.
me. And
Thank
today's
you.
a special day for me, and to be with you today, to share this day, that really means a lot to me. So I just wanted to let the world know that. And we thank Greg for his
Oh yeah,
service to our country.
Thanks, yeah, thanks for bringing this guy here. I
You're
mean,
very welcome. Thank
it's so nice you to do this, Larry.
Well, and I want you to live another, 10, 20 years? What do you want to
I'm
do?
shooting for 102.
Okay.
Now, you know,
Well, I'll probably be 102 when you're 102.
that's about 12 years.
Okay.
No, it's 11, more like 11. But I think I can handle 11 years.
Well,
I'm going to try.
if something ever happens to you, I hope to be there,
I hope so.
and I can say a word or two for you.
That'd be nice.
And there's going to be a great reunion in heaven of all these veterans. of
Oh,
World
that's
War
what's
II.
so beautiful.
I'm sure that's going on
Yeah.
right now.
That's, you know, every night I pray that when I go to heaven, which I pray I will go to heaven, that I meet all my buddies up there,
Can you introduce me? to
including
them when I get up
Basket.
there?
You bet I'll
You can
introduce
introduce me.
You'll love
You'll
Basket.
probably have this hat on up in heaven.
I probably will, yeah. And Basket was the one that was killed, you know, and took
Yeah.
my place. He was one of the best pilots we had. But
Well, if I walk up to you in heaven and say, "Do you remember me?" I hope you do. I hope you
I'll
remember me.
remember you. How
Okay.
could I forget you?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've had people
No.
forget me before.
Not me, Larry.
Yeah,
No.
it hurts when they do that to
How do you pronounce